My parents looked me dead in the eye and said, "You don't belong at your own father's birthday." That sentence still burns in my chest. Imagine hearing that not from strangers, not from enemies, but from the two people who were supposed to believe in you the most. Hey, before I tell you how this night turned into the wildest twist of my life, hit subscribe and drop a comment with where you're watching from. I love seeing this community grow across different states and countries. Back to that moment. I was standing in front of Aurora Heights, the shining jewel of downtown. Marble floors, golden chandeliers, the kind of place my family worshipped because it screamed status. My mom stood there, arms crossed, her voice cold. "Don't embarrass us. Go home." My dad didn't flinch. He added, "This dinner is for successful people only." Their laughter and clinking glasses echoed from inside while I stood outside like some unwanted stranger. I gripped the little black clutch in my hand, and for a split second I almost turned away. Almost. Because here's the thing my parents didn't know. Aurora Heights wasn't just some hotel to me. It was mine. Every brick, every chandelier, every piece of artwork hanging in that lobby. I had chosen it. 10 years earlier, when I left the family's accounting business to chase my dream in hospitality, they wrote me off. My father's words still haunt me. No daughter of mine is going to be a glorified waitress. They never asked about my work again. They never believed in me again. And tonight, they thought they had locked me out of their perfect little world. I straightened my shoulders, pushed past the sting of their rejection, and stepped forward. That's when the glass doors opened, and Owen, my head of security, appeared. His voice carried like a drumbeat across the marble steps. "Is everything all right here, Madam CEO? Your usual table is ready." The silence that followed was deafening. My mom's hand slipped from the door handle, my dad's jaw tightened. For the first time in my life, I saw fear and recognition in their eyes. They thought I was the failure. But in that moment, they realized the truth. I wasn't begging for a seat at their table. They were standing at the door of mine. The echo of Owen's words still hung in the air. "Madam CEO, your usual table is ready." That was the crack in the mirror. Everything my parents thought they knew about me shattered right then. For a moment, nobody moved. My sister Vanessa's smirk vanished. My mother's pearl necklace trembled in her hands as if the string might snap. My father's face froze into something between disbelief and anger. And me? I just smiled, not with arrogance, but with the calm of someone who finally had nothing left to prove. I stepped forward into the golden light of the lobby. Every chandelier, every marble tile, every velvet chair. This place carried my fingerprints. The staff straightened at once, greeting me warmly. "Good evening, Ms. Tran," Rachel at the front desk said. "The executive suite has been prepared for tonight's celebration." I turned back to my parents, who still stood outside as if the ground had shifted beneath their feet. "Coming in?" I asked, gently, almost playfully. They followed in stunned silence. The walk through the lobby was surreal. Guests whispered, employees nodded with respect. My mother's heels clicked sharply against the marble, each step echoing like the reminder of how far she had pushed me away. My father avoided eye contact, pretending to study the decor. I knew better. He was calculating. The private elevator doors slid open. I pulled the gold keycard from my clutch. Vanessa's eyes widened. She recognized the symbol etched on it. "Wait, how do you have that?" she stammered. "Because I built this floor," I answered simply, sliding the card. The doors opened into the VIP lounge. The party halted. Laughter died. Forks froze halfway to mouths. My father's colleagues, business partners, and old family friends stared in shock as I entered, not as an outsider, but as the host. "Amelia," my father muttered, "what are you doing here? Your mother said you couldn't afford—" I cut him off softly but firmly. "I'm not crashing the party. I own it." The room gasped, and then came the turning point, the line that flipped everything. "You thought I was the embarrassment of this family, but every one of you is standing under my roof." The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that presses down on everyone's chest. My father's friend, Mr. Harrison from the bank, broke it with a relieved laugh. "My God, Robert, your daughter is the very CEO we've been trying to reach for months. Amelia, we've been chasing your signature on that loan deal." Whispers erupted. Thomas Anderson from the law firm stepped forward, shaking my hand. "We had no idea. You've been building an empire while we—" He stopped short, realizing he was admitting what they all thought of me. My father sank into his chair, his color draining. My mother clutched her pearls tighter, eyes darting from guest to guest, desperate to contain the humiliation. Vanessa collapsed into a seat, her fiancé fidgeting beside her. But I didn't gloat. That wasn't my style. I looked at my parents and spoke with a steady voice. I didn't hide my success out of shame. I stayed silent because I knew you wouldn't believe me. Tonight isn't about revenge, it's about respect. And just like that, the balance of power shifted. I wasn't the unwanted child at the door anymore. I was the woman who built the table, the woman they tried to keep out but could no longer ignore. I raised a glass, not to them, but to myself. For the first time in years, I felt whole. The champagne glass trembled slightly in my hand, but not from nerves. This time, it was from clarity. For years, my parents had told me I was too fragile, too soft, too unworthy. Tonight, I realized it was their world that was brittle, not mine. I set the glass down on the polished oak table and turned to face them. My father sat stiffly, his knuckles white as he gripped his chair. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes sharp and searching for a way to reclaim control. "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother demanded finally, her voice slicing through the air. "Why hide everything? Do you know how humiliating this is for us?" Her words landed like knives, not because of their cruelty, I was used to that, but because she still didn't understand. She was more worried about appearances than the years she had crushed me with her disapproval. I leaned forward, keeping my voice calm. "Would you have believed me, Mom? Would either of you? 10 years ago, when I said I wanted to build something of my own, you laughed. Dad told me no daughter of his would be a glorified waitress. You both erased me from this family before I even had a chance to prove myself." My father's jaw tightened. "We were protecting you. Accounting was stable, predictable. You chose service work." I shook my head slowly. "I chose myself. And tonight proves I wasn't wrong." The room was silent except for the faint clinking of silverware as nervous guests pretended to be invisible. My sister Vanessa fiddled with her ring, refusing to meet my eyes. My mother drew a deep breath, preparing another strike. "You may have money now, Amelia, but money doesn't erase your mistakes. Family is family. You can't just walk back in here and act superior." There it was, the final attempt to twist this narrative. That was when I delivered the line I had been holding for years. "I'm not here to act superior. I'm here to make something clear. Respect is the only currency I accept from you now." The words settled heavily between us. My father looked stunned, as though someone had finally flipped the mirror back on him. My mother blinked rapidly, her facade cracking for just a second. I continued, steady and unshaken. "You both taught me that blood should mean loyalty, but you only practiced loyalty when it was convenient for you. You raised me to believe I was less than, and yet here I stand, owning the very walls that surround you." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The power was in the silence, the stillness, the way the entire room leaned in to hear. Vanessa tried to intervene, her voice sharp with panic. "Amelia, don't do this. You're making a scene." I turned toward her and smiled faintly. "No, Vanessa. I'm ending one." The transition was seamless. I stood, signaling Owen with a slight nod. He moved closer, not as security, but as a silent witness to my resolve. "Here are my terms," I said, locking eyes with my parents. "If you want to be part of my life, there will be no more belittling, no more dismissive texts, no more pretending I'm invisible. You will respect my choices and my boundaries. If you can't, then this is where our story together ends." Gasps rippled through the lounge. My mother's hand flew to her pearls. My father looked like he'd swallowed gravel. But I didn't waver, because the truth was simple. I wasn't asking for their approval anymore. I was offering them a choice. For a long beat, no one spoke. Then my father finally rasped, "And if we don't agree?" I held his gaze. "Then you don't see me again." Ever that line was the true turning point, not the staff greeting me as CEO, not the stunned faces of my parents' friends. This was the moment I took back my power, not through revenge, but through boundaries. The silence in the room was different now. It wasn't the silence of disbelief. It was the silence of realization. For once, they knew I meant every word. I turned to the guests, lifting my glass once more. "Please enjoy the evening. Dinner is on the house. My house." And with that, I walked toward the terrace, leaving the weight of decades behind me. For the first time, I wasn't chasing their acceptance. I was defining my own. The night air on the terrace was crisp, carrying the faint hum of the city below. I leaned on the railing, staring at the skyline that had become my canvas. Each glowing tower represented a battle I had fought alone, contracts negotiated, sleepless nights endured, risks taken when everyone else doubted me, especially my parents. Behind me, the sliding glass door whispered open. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. My father's heavy steps, my mother's sharper ones. Together they approached like a storm refusing to pass. "Amelia," my father began, his voice low but strained. "We need to talk." I turned slowly. Both of them looked smaller than I remembered, not in stature, but in certainty. For the first time, they weren't the judges. They were the judged. "You embarrassed us," my mother said sharply, pearls glinting under the terrace lights, "parading your success in front of everyone like—" I cut her off, my voice steady. "Like the failure you always called me?" The silence that followed was sharper than her words. My father's shoulders sagged, but my mother bristled. She wasn't ready to give up control. "You could have told us," my father muttered. "We would have been proud." I let out a bitter laugh, not cruel, just tired. Proud. 10 years ago, you both said I was throwing my life away. You didn't ask about my journey, you didn't call on birthdays, you erased me from family dinners, you weren't waiting to be proud, you were waiting for me to crawl back in shame. My mother's eyes flickered, guilt mixing with defiance. She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. Don't rewrite history. I lived it." For the first time, my father looked me directly in the eye. "Then what do you want from us now?" That was the moment, the question that flipped everything, because it gave me the stage to declare what I had carried inside for years. "I don't want anything from you," I said softly. "Not money, not approval, not even love, if it comes with conditions. The only thing I'll accept is respect. And if you can't give me that, then you don't get me at all." The words struck like a gavel. My father blinked, my mother's lips parted. But nothing came out. For once, they had no script. I took a slow breath, letting the city lights steady me. "You wanted me gone because you thought I'd embarrass you. But tonight, you embarrassed yourselves. In front of your friends, your colleagues, everyone. Not because I succeeded without you, but because you refused to believe I could." My mother looked away, her hands tightening around her pearls. My father shifted uncomfortably. "So what now?" he asked, almost pleading. "Now," I said, "you have a choice. Change the way you treat me, or accept that tonight was the last time you'll see me." My mother gasped quietly, as though the words were a knife. My father's eyes glistened with something I wasn't ready to name, regret, maybe, or just fear of losing control. I didn't wait for their answer. I stepped past them, sliding the glass door open. The noise of the party washed over me again. Laughter, clinking glasses, conversations buzzing. Life, moving forward. I paused just long enough to look back. "I've built a world where I don't need you to survive. But if you want a place in it, you'll have to earn it like everyone else. That was the true turning point. Not the reveal in the lobby, not the gasps from their friends. It was here, on the terrace, where I finally told them the one thing they never expected to hear, that their power over me was gone. As I walked back into the glow of the party, the music swelled, the staff smiled, and guests leaned in with admiration. My parents stayed frozen on the terrace, left behind in the cold night air. For the first time, I wasn't the daughter seeking their approval. I was the woman setting the terms, and whether they could accept it or not, the balance of our family had changed forever. When I stepped back into the lounge, the air was different. Conversations didn't resume right away. People glanced at me, then at my parents lingering on the terrace, their once commanding presence reduced to shadows. Whispers spread quickly. The Andersons, pillars of my father's pride, leaned in close to me. "Miss Tran, we'd be honored to discuss a lease renewal on your properties," Thomas said, his voice laced with eagerness. The irony wasn't lost on me. 10 years ago, my parents wouldn't let me sit at their table. Now their oldest allies were lining up for a seat at mine. Vanessa tried to salvage her image. She raised her glass and forced a laugh. "Well, Amelia, looks like you've been busy." Her fiancé shifted uncomfortably beside her, checking his phone as if searching for an escape. I met her eyes, calm but unshakable. "Busy building what you told me I'd never have." The room stilled again. That was the step I could never take back, the moment of public clarity. "You all called me a failure, but every single one of you is standing under my roof tonight." Gasps rippled across the tables. My mother finally re-entered the room, her face pale, her pearls trembling between her fingers. My father followed, but his usual booming voice was gone. For once he had no introduction, no speech, no applause. Guests turned toward me instead. Some congratulated me outright, others whispered apologies for the years they'd joined in belittling me, and as each word reached my parents' ears, I saw the humiliation etch itself deeper into their posture. Vanessa slammed her glass down. "You think you're better than us now?" I smiled faintly, not with arrogance but with truth. "No. I just know I'm not less." That line drew the line in the sand. The power they'd held over me collapsed under the weight of my own voice. As the music picked back up and the staff served dessert, the balance had shifted completely. My parents weren't the hosts anymore. They weren't even the center of the story. I was, and not because of revenge, but because I finally stepped into the light they tried so hard to keep me from. The party eventually wound down, though the echoes of it will stay with me forever. Guests drifted out into the night, some still whispering about the twist they had witnessed. My parents left quietly, their voices silenced, their power undone not by anger, but by truth. I walked back through the lobby alone. The chandeliers glimmered above me, reflecting years of hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance. I remembered the nights I had cried into my pillow, wondering if I'd made a mistake leaving the family firm. I remembered the texts I never got on birthdays, the empty seats beside me during holidays. But tonight proved something I had always hoped was true. I didn't need their approval to validate my worth. Out on the street, the city buzzed with life. I breathed in the cool air and felt lighter, freer, as though I had shed a weight I had carried my entire life. My parents' judgment no longer defined me. My silence had been mistaken for weakness, but it was really preparation. My absence had been their choice, but my boundaries were mine. The turning point wasn't the gasp when Owen called me Madam CEO. It wasn't even the stunned look on my father's face when he realized his daughter owned the empire he once mocked. No, the real turning point was me saying aloud what I had held inside for a decade. "Respect is the only currency I'll accept from you now." That was the moment I stopped being their disappointment and started being my own person, fully, unapologetically. So here's the lesson I carry forward, the one I want you to hear. Family can reject you, dismiss you, even erase you. But they cannot define you. You are more than the names they call you, more than the doubts they cast. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is build your own table, then decide who gets a seat at it.